Today, we're exposing a chilling conspiracy unfolding right before our eyes. The USDA has destroyed billions of eggs, on the advice of none other than America's largest farmland owner, Bill Gates. They say it's about food safety, but let's be real, this is about control. A calculated move to cripple food production, send prices through the roof, and force mass vaccination on poultry, all while Big Pharma rakes in billions. Henry Kissinger once said, "Control oil and you control nations. Control food and you control people." Well, guess what? They're coming for the food. And when you control the food, you control everything. Stay with us, because what we're about to uncover will make your blood run cold. Before we dive in, join the People's Voice Locals community if you haven't already, and sign up to become a member of the world's first ever cyber nation that truly believes in life, liberty, and the pursuit of your dreams. Visit joson.com and click the Join Us button today. It's completely free. Reporting on the globalist elite is a full-time job, because as the Bible tells us, wicked doesn't sleep. Take Bill Gates, for example. He's no longer hiding in the shadows. Now he's openly pushing what he calls the global goals. But what exactly are these goals? And more importantly, who really benefits?
We all need to support the global goals.
When President Trump's US aid funding freeze ended Bill Gates' government money laundering operation, he immediately went on a media tour and issued a chilling ultimatum to the world. Don't cut off my funding or millions of people will die.
Gavi, that's Bill and Melinda Gates started Gavi. This is the Vaccine Alliance, Global Vaccine Alliance. And we look into the books here for the USAID payment system, and you can see just from this screenshot here, Gavi, now this is over several years, but $4 billion the USAID was paying to Gavi, and you can go down there a little bit, another $880 million payment. You see the World Health Organization in there, a little over $700 million payment. So there's a lot of money going to really Bill Gates and the World Health Organization. And it's interesting because as soon as Trump suspended the payment system for this 90-day review and Musk moved in, you saw Bill Gates do a media tour, and it sounded like this.
So I'm a little worried, particularly with this USAID stuff. My foundation partners with USAID on nutrition and getting vaccines out. And, there's incredible people. They're not actually worms that work there. So, hopefully we'll get some of that work back in shape. In fact, if we don't, you could have literally millions of deaths.
And Bill Gates is pretty clear character. He's kind of a one-trick pony. Anything that seems to subtly threaten him, you'll see him do a media tour and just go, millions will die, sorry. And then you'll hit, this headline was made on that same interview. Bill Gates says the odds of another pandemic in the next 4 years are 10 to 15%. We're not prepared. So he comes out, people are going to die, another pandemic, basically do not cut my funding. And we saw that during COVID as well, when the vaccine hesitancy was coming. He was kind of playing the same game there.
Gates, who was divorced by his wife due to his close relationship with deceased paedophile Jeffrey Epstein, is in a desperate position. And for good reason. For decades, he wielded his wealth to buy power and influence, corrupting governments and institutions with shocking ease. But in recent years, the unelected global health czar pushed too far, crossing lines that even his allies couldn't ignore. Millions have paid the price for his greed, and now his evil deeds are catching up with him.
You murdering Bill Gates! Die for God! You son of a bitch! You have blood on your hands! You have blood on your hands!
In Holland, Gates is facing trial, scrambling to deploy every trick and legal maneuver to avoid accountability for what prosecutors say were deadly lies about the COVID vaccines that were responsible for countless body bags. Meanwhile, in Kenya, the High Court has stripped him of legal and diplomatic immunity, paving the way for a major criminal case that they believe will blow the lid off the horrifying results of his vaccine trials. The walls are closing in, and Gates' empire of control is finally beginning to crack. And this is precisely why Gates is so desperate to push his bird flu mRNA vaccine onto the global population, whether they consent or not.
What are you most focused on with regard AI and drug discovery?
There's many of the world's diseases take malaria or tuberculosis as an example, where the people who suffer aren't rich enough to command the attention in the marketplace. And so, even though to this day over 600,000 kids die every year, 600,000 of the 5 million kids who die under the age of 5 die because of malaria. And yet, malaria research, is tiny. We're by far the biggest in that. And so now we're using AI. We're coming up with new drugs, a new vaccine, also a genetic way of massively killing mosquitoes, so-called gene drive, which will mean the infection rate goes down and give us a chance, as all these tools come together, to actually eradicate malaria.
This is classic Bill Gates. We've seen this playbook before. Let's rewind and take a look at what happened the last time he pulled this stunt. First, he donated 100,000 chickens to Africa, claiming it was to help fight poverty. Then boom, bird flu mysteriously broke out, wiping out 3.5 million chickens in Nigeria alone. And who swooped in to save the day? Bill Gates. Suddenly, Nigeria's traditional poultry industry was replaced by a Gates-backed company, one that only sells genetically modified chickens, designed to depend on Bill Gates' patented feed, Bill Gates' special vaccines, and a never-ending supply of Bill Gates' products.
Genetically modified chickens that need special food and vaccinations. Gates was delighted. In a press conference, he stated that 100,000 chickens were going to be donated to the poor in Ethiopia, Nigeria, and Tanzania. He tried to give them to Bolivia too, but they didn't want them. As a matter of fact, the African people didn't want them either, as Janet Mawiyo pointed out. But for some reason, Bill Gates always gets what he wants in Africa. Genetically modified chickens, vaccinations. It seems like he has built up a great relationship with the mostly corrupted leaders of those countries. Oh, and the chicken story had a little tail to it. Shortly after Gates had introduced his super chickens, the bird flu erupted. In Nigeria alone, more than 750 outbreaks led to 3.5 million dead chickens.
Gates' playbook is shameless and the world is finally waking up. People are rising up against him, but most have no idea just how deep this rabbit hole goes. Because once you see the full extent of his plans for mass starvation and depopulation, your blood will run cold. What we're about to reveal will change everything. Stay with us. Today's sponsor is pillsforever.com. If you think Big Pharma have your best interests at heart, think again. Under Biden, the price of medicine in America has skyrocketed, and there are certain medicines Big Pharma don't want you to know about. That's why I've partnered with pillsforever.com. All of their FDA-approved medicines are the cheapest you'll find anywhere. More importantly, you can order medicines that Big Pharma don't want you to have, such as ivermectin, hydroxychloroquine, and fenbendazole. Speaking of fenbendazole, not only does it get rid of parasites that live inside your body, there have been studies that show fenbendazole can help with cancer. Listen to this testimony of Joe Tippins, a cancer survivor, thanks to fenbendazole.
2 years ago, Joe Tippins says he was told to go home, call hospice, and say his goodbyes. The doctors were unanimous. He was going to die of small cell lung cancer.
Once that kind of cancer goes that far afield, the odds of survival are less than 1%, and the median life expectancy is 3 months.
Tippins says he got a tip, not from a pharmacist, but a veterinarian. And in his desperation, he turned from people medicine to dog medicine. Specifically, fenbendazole.
My insurance company spent $1.2 million on me with traditional means before I switched to a $5 a week medicine that actually saved me.
Get 15% off using coupon code People's Voice at the checkout. Please click the link below this video to take advantage of this fantastic offer. Anyone wondering how medical science was hijacked by the global elite needs to look no further than the Rockefeller dynasty. They didn't just influence modern medicine, they engineered it, creating Big Pharma as we know it today. And here's where things get even more interesting. Bill Gates is a Rockefeller by blood. His lineage traces back through the maternal line, connecting him directly to the same powerful family that reshaped healthcare into a profit-driven empire. Coincidence? Not a chance.
Around the same time that John D. Rockefeller seized U.S. media, he also hijacked U.S. medicine. When it was discovered that drugs could be produced from petroleum, America's top oil mogul ordered his army of propagandists to invert reality accordingly. Medicines used for thousands of years were suddenly classified as alternative, while the new, petroleum-based, highly addictive, and patentable drugs were declared the gold standard. After buying the German pharmaceutical company that manufactured chemicals of war for Adolf Hitler, Rockefeller leveraged his political influence by pressing Congress to declare natural healing modalities unscientific quackery. Rockefeller then took control of the American Medical Association and began offering massive grants to top medical schools under the mandate that only his approved curriculum be taught. Any mention of the healing powers of herbs, plants, and diet was erased from most medical textbooks. Doctors and professors who objected to Rockefeller's plan were crucified by the media, removed from the AMA, and stripped of their license to teach and practice medicine. Those who dared to speak out were arrested and jailed. When evidence began to emerge that petroleum-based medicines were causing cancer, Mr. Rockefeller founded the American Cancer Society, through which he suppressed that information. John D. Rockefeller is duly credited as the founder of the pharmaceutical industry.
According to the pharma-sponsored media, the depopulation agenda is fake news. Nothing more than a conspiracy cooked up by paranoid conspiracy theorists who need to accept that the global elite, including Klaus Schwab and Bill Gates, have our best interests at heart. Of course, the term conspiracy theorist was invented by the CIA to be deployed as part of their media strategy to discredit anybody getting too close to the truth.
The term conspiracy theory itself and conspiracy theorist was invented by the CIA and used and pushed through their media plans to discredit anybody who questioned the results of the original JFK investigation. And again, it gets to this thing, I set aside whether or not there was a second shooter, whether there was anyone on the grassy knoll. Let's say that the official story really is accurate. It's pretty extraordinary that conspiracy theory, conspiracy theorists are themselves literally terms born of a government conspiracy. It makes you wonder. People say, well, sure, the CIA had 30 media assets back then, including national news anchors. But I mean, that's not how it is today.
Yeah, right.
Is it?
So-called conspiracy theorists have been ahead of the curve for years, exposing the real news months, even years before the mainstream media dares to admit it. How? Because they pay attention to the whispers behind closed doors, to the quiet confessions hidden in plain sight. Like this rare David Rockefeller speech from 1994, where the grandson of John D. Rockefeller laid out a chilling blueprint for massive population reduction, or as history will remember it, mass murder in the Western world. The clip gets even more disturbing when he explicitly references the year 2020 as the year of interest to the globalist elite.
The negative impact of population growth on all of our planetary ecosystems is becoming appallingly evident. In particular, the rapid growing exploitation of the world's supply of energy and water is a matter of deep concern, and the toxic byproducts of widespread industrialization have increased atmospheric pollution to dangerous levels. Unless nations will agree to work together to tackle these cross-border challenges posed by population growth, overconsumption of resources, and environmental degradation, the prospects for a decent life on our planet will be threatened. The recent UN meeting in Cairo is appropriately focused on one of these key issues, population growth. But the controversies which have erupted at the conference illustrate the problem of coming to grips with issues that are deeply divisive and which have a profound moral dimension. The United Nations can and should play an essential role in helping the world find a satisfactory way of stabilizing world population and stimulating economic development in a manner that is sensitive to religious and moral considerations.
Why are Rockefeller's evil ideas still being rolled out today, years after his death? It's simple when you analyse the lineage of the globalist ideas. Rockefeller recruited Henry Kissinger, who died recently at the age of 100. And Kissinger recruited Klaus Schwab, who has since partnered with Bill Gates in penetrating cabinets in the West and corrupting governments all over the world.
Bill Gates has taken over control of WHO, and it's become his vessel for, what he calls philanthrocapitalism, which is a way of making a lot of money by controlling these international institutions that make public health policy. And, for example, to get the WHO, which funds most of the African health departments, to use its power and leverage over those departments to mandate vaccines for the children in those countries. And those vaccines are made almost invariably by companies in which Gates has a private financial interest, or which his foundation has a private financial interest. It was the same thing that he did with the Green Revolution in Africa. He got African countries to switch from traditional agriculture and switch it to GMO monocultures. Gates did bring in the corporations that he, owns, Coca-Cola, to buy the corn syrup, and Kraft cheese, and McDonald's, and Monsanto, and Cargill, and all these other corporations to build the infrastructure for these GMO products, to build the supply chain, and then create those products and sell them to U.S. corporations. And it's been an absolute calamity for the people of Africa. And I think there's 30 million additional people who have become food insecure as a direct result of Gates's Green Revolution. And but Gates and his companies have made a killing on it, literally a killing.
Now that RFK Jr. has confirmed as health secretary, it might be time to investigate how exactly Gates made $242 million in the Pfizer stock scheme before dumping the stock and admitting that vaccines don't do anything they promised us they would.
And the last one of these was in 2019 in October. And it was hosted by Bill Gates, by Fauci, and by Avril Haines. I'm sure a lot of you have gone and looked at this on YouTube. It's called Event 201. That same week, Bill Gates, who was overseeing this simulation, bought 1.1 million shares of BioNTech vaccine, which later became the Pfizer vaccine. He then sold almost all that stock, 87%, 2 years later, at a $242 million profit. And a week after that, he publicly announced the vaccine didn't work. This is what you call a pump and dump scheme. Because he was the guy who was on TV with his minion, Peter Hotez, who took $52 million from Gates for Gates made his institution. So you had the pair of them pumping up this stock for 2 years, and then dumping it a week before he goes on TV and says, it didn't work out.
2 years ago, Klaus Schwab openly bragged that the World Economic Forum and their globalist stakeholders, including Bill Gates, were on track to have total control over the human race by the year 2030. Unfortunately for the global elite and their dystopian vision of mandatory vaccines, microchips, open-air prisons and reduced populations, the last 2 years have not gone according to plan. In fact, they've been a disaster for the globalists. The global elite are now acting like cornered rats, and it's our job to make sure they don't escape. Here at The People's Voice, we're fully committed to uncovering the truth and holding the elite accountable at Nuremberg 2.0 trials. But we rely on the support of viewers like you to continue our work. Subscribe to the channel, spread this video far and wide, and join the People's Voice Locals community for exclusive and uncensored content. I hope to see you there. Today's video is brought to you by IPv6ers. Are you a content creator who wants to publish information online without Big Brother spying and censoring your every move? IPv6 is set to revolutionize the way information is disseminated on the internet by eliminating the need for big tech companies to provide unreliable, overpriced services such as self-hosting, email, and data management. IPv6 enables an easy and accessible way for you to host your own web and email server with direct end-to-end connections and enhanced security. This means no snooping from Big Brother and no interference from the technocratic elite. If Hillary Clinton can get away with running her own server, why shouldn't you? Go to thepeoplesvoice.tv/IPv6 to sign up, or click the link below this video to take back control of the internet and win the info wars against the globalists. If you like our content, help support our sponsor IPv6ers and go to thepeoplesvoice.tv/IPv6 today. Thank you IPv6ers for making this video possible.